Hello everyone, I'm Al Grego, and this is the Yes We Are Open podcast. It's my second day in Winnipeg, a pleasant sunny day. Although the heat wave has broken, I'm being treated to a more comfortable temperature in the mid-20s. Did you know that despite sometimes being referred to as Winterpeg due to its cold winters, most days in Winnipeg are sunny? I learned last spring that Calgary is known as the sunniest city in Canada, but right behind in second place is Winnipeg, which gets 316 days of sunshine a year. I'm in the northeast part of the city, in a neighborhood called East Kildonan. Primarily a residential community, East Kildonan has a population of approximately 35,000, according to the 2016 census. It was named after the Strath of Kildonan in northern Scotland, from where many of its early settlers came. It was incorporated as a city in 1957 and then amalgamated with 11 other municipalities, including Winnipeg, to form the city of Winnipeg as we know it in 1972. One of East Kildonan's more notable attractions is the Rainbow Stage, Canada's longest-running outdoor theatre. That's right, an outdoor theatre in Winterpeg. But given what I know now about the amount of sunny days, this is less of a surprise. Located in Kildonan Park, the open-air theatre can seat up to 2,300 people. It was constructed on the site of a former bandstand which was damaged by the 1950 Red River flood. The new structure was finished in 1953, featuring a new triodetic dome roof. To this day, the Rainbow Stage and its not-for-profit musical theatre company airs 2 to 3 musicals each summer. Today I'm just east of Kildonan Park and the Red River on Rothsay Street, across from Princess Margaret's School in the Ruth Gardens apartment complex. This is where I find the subject of this week's story, Scout Coffee and Community.
Hi. Hi. Al? Yes, Katrina? Yeah, nice to meet you.
That's Katrina, the owner. While she takes care of a customer, I take a look around her store. At the front of the cafe are shelves with items for sale. Kids' books, puzzles, games, and other various products for both children and parents of young children. Along the right side of the space is a long counter where food and drinks are prepared and served. The space has a high ceiling and plenty of seating. And in the back is the main attraction, especially if you're of a certain age. An indoor play set, mats, and various other toys, plus a colorful mural painted on the back wall. Katrina finishes with her customer, and we sit down at one of the tables for our interview.
Hi, I'm Katrina Tessier. I am the owner of Scout Coffee and Community. We opened in 2017, or at the end of the year, December 2017. Basically, I was inspired by a coffee shop that I had been to when I lived in Victoria, BC. That's where I had my daughter. She was born in Victoria, and when I was on maternity leave, I spent a good portion of that time at this little cafe. It basically had like a little corner with some books and some mats that you could put your kids down on, basically, so you would have somewhere for them to go so you could sit and socialize. So it was like a great little kind of mom's meetup that I would go to often there. And then when my husband and I decided to move back to Winnipeg, we're both from here, and after having a kid, we felt we wanted to come back home. We had the plans to open Scout. We moved back in 2016 and then opened at the end of 2017.
Where does the name come from?
It's my daughter's middle name. Yeah. Yeah, with the name being after my daughter, it's like she was the inspiration for sure. Like, it's one of those businesses, if you don't have kids, you probably wouldn't think about opening a spot like this. And really like recognizing that we need spaces like this within our city to have like places where parents can feel safe to bring their kids and comfortable and can just hang out and be themselves.
How old was your daughter?
We moved back to Winnipeg. She was 2. So she was 3 when we opened the coffee shop. When I opened in 2017, I took a loan through Futurepreneur, which involves a mentorship, involves some training. They have lots of good website stuff. I usually recommend people check out their stuff if they're thinking about starting a business. So that stuff definitely helped give me some guidance on what to do and where to go and resources and things like that. And then just a lot of winging it and making mistakes and trying to fix those mistakes and kind of growing that way.
Interesting. What was your background before you started this?
So when we were living in Victoria, I worked in promotions within a radio station there. I worked in radio for 7 years before opening the coffee shop. So that was kind of the majority of my background. I have no business training. My post-secondary education was in broadcasting. So that was my history, which definitely the marketing portion of it, working in promotions, that helped opening a business for sure. Plus I had connections within, the city as well. So having even, some radio people show up to the coffee shop opening and posting on their socials and things doesn't hurt at all. Yeah. This is actually our second location. When we first opened, we were in the community that I lived in, which is the west end of Winnipeg. So we opened kind of West End Wolseley neighborhood. We were in a smaller space, just over 1,000 square feet. I think people were pretty excited about the idea for sure. We were pretty popular kind of right from the beginning, which was really great. It was nice kind of being that space for families. I think we really found the people we were looking for sure when we opened that space.
So when did you move here?
We moved here in 2022.
So quite recent.
Yes, yeah, we've been here for 2 years. With the move to this location, it is 800 square feet bigger than the previous location, and hosting birthday parties became something that became really popular for us. And at the other space, our capacity was only 25. So this space, we were able to double our capacity. We can have up to 50 people in this space. So having that has really amplified our party offerings, which obviously is a great revenue generator. The other thing with this space is we have a parking lot. Yes. When we were on Portage at our old location, we did not have a parking lot, and that's something that I feel was a bit of a struggle point. So finding a space with a parking lot was a pretty top priority for the second location. Social media is probably our biggest form of advertising. I'd say that's where we do the majority of our advertising is through social media. I'm trying to have a strong presence on social media. We've done a few community markets, especially at the beginning, little pop-ups where we bring coffee and hand out cards and flyers and things like that. And then the birthday parties actually themselves have been a really great marketing tool, because someone who knows of us books their birthday party and then they invite all their kids' friends, and then all their parents come and they're like, oh, we didn't know about this place. Oh, this is so cool. We should book our birthday party here. So having that as a way for people to find out about us has been super awesome. It's very frequent where people will book a birthday party after they've been to a birthday party here. Check it out. We call ourselves a play cafe. So we're kind of all of the things a regular coffee shop is. We do coffee, espresso drinks, pastries, sandwiches, things like that. But then we also feature the play area at no additional cost. So basically, if you come and get a coffee here, your kid can play. The bonus part is that you can actually sit and have your coffee and not feel, worried if your kid is screaming, worried if they're crying, that people are going to look at you or that you should leave or be more quiet, compared to, probably your standard coffee shop where people want to sit and study and read. We are not that type of coffee shop. When we do have birthday parties, we also have the option to add in a bounce castle, which we set up. We just move the tables around and set it up inside the coffee shop. Yeah, so we have a small little bounce castle that can be added in as sort of a bonus cost. We do glitter tattoos for parties, work with different partners as well to have princesses or superheroes or things like that can be added on to the birthday parties. So that makes it super fun. And then for our retail side, we sell toys, board games, books. We also do carry some baby type support things, we do baby carriers. We also rent out baby carriers. So we have what's called our lending library. So you can kind of try before you buy, which is really nice in a world where we don't really have a lot of options for in-store purchase of those things. A lot of it's you buy it on Amazon, it shows up and you hope that you like it. So we sell those. We sell them new and secondhand. So people can sell their baby carriers through us with a consignment fee. And then we sell things like baby-friendly bug spray and soaps and shampoos and all kinds of things that parents would need to fit the type of people that come here, that they can kind of grab some of that stuff from us as well. 2019 was probably definitely one of our best years for sure. And so we were looking at potentially running 2 stores, opening this location and Portage. And then we decided to scale just back down to 1. We did run both stores kind of as a trial. So we were on a 5-year lease at Portage at our first location. And this store we opened the same year as our last year of our lease. And it was sort of like, well, we'll see what happens if we like running 2 stores. And if this seems to be good, we'll do it. Then I'll renew the lease and we'll run both stores, and decided not to do that for a variety of reasons.
Up next, we're going to find out what the reasons were that forced Katrina to make the difficult decision to shut down the original Portage location of her cafe. You're listening to Yes, We Are Open. Katrina Tessier opened her ideal niche cafe, offering a safe space for parents of young children to gather and have a coffee while their kids can play and carry on without worry of bothering the other patrons. The business was such a success that they opened a second, larger location across town. But now they're back to 1 location. So what happened? Let's find out.
What would you say has been your greatest struggles with Scout Coffee?
Yeah, when you had mentioned thinking about struggles, so I'm sure everyone talks about going through the pandemic. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about something different. Yeah, that period of time opening a second location was definitely more of a struggle than we anticipated with it. And when we had decided to expand and go into the second location, I think we hit so many blocks that really just put us behind, and kind of now we're just still digging ourselves out of that. When we made Portage, when we put together the first location, it was very much like we bought stuff from IKEA and we built it ourselves, and we did a whole bunch of stuff on our own that helped save money. And also some of it, I just feel like I was more tapped into where our money was going. And with this space, we did end up hiring a contractor, and I feel like some of that just got out of control. Things that were kind of we could have done it probably way cheaper just from buying stuff from IKEA again. And I feel like some of the results I got was I don't really feel like this was actually better than what I could have done myself. Or things ended up costing way more than what we had anticipated or what we talked about. And I don't know, was that miscommunication? Where did these expenses come from? Why do you think I have this much money to spend on stuff? It's we had a budget, and they'd be oh, well, this thing didn't work. We had to buy this, and it's $10,000. And you're okay, well, where am I going to get $10,000 from? And I don't know with them. I know they've worked with some of the larger coffee shops in the city that I'm I don't know if they're just used to being well, we just replaced that and there was $10,000 and then we did this and there's another $20,000. And it's oh no, my budget was pretty strict on what we could spend. So definitely some of those factors that I'm I don't know if I would do that again if we were to ever open another location. That I was I feel maybe having more awareness and even taking on a role of a general contractor myself and be I'll just hire out the pieces that I can't do myself or I'm not familiar with, or that some stuff needs to be done, an electrician or something needs to be done by an actual electrician. But I feel some of those expenses just got really out of hand. And then certain things, even with the building, we have the sprinkler system in this building because we're underneath an apartment. So that was one thing that I found out, some of that maybe a bit of inexperience, but almost wish someone had mentioned it to me, again, working with this contractor. He's oh yeah, if we didn't have this sprinkler system, things would have been done a lot faster. So some of those things was we had to get the fire department to inspect it, and the sprinklers had to do these certain tests and things like that added expense of having to move sprinklers and move things around and waiting on permits and waiting on inspections. So you get kind of constantly stuck in these zones of, well, now we just have to wait 2 months before we get this. And when we signed the lease here, which with most commercial leases, you negotiate some free rent within that space, and that's kind of your build out time. With between the permits and all these extra kind of problems we found building out this space, we ate up all of our free rent, asked for an extension on it. They gave us an extension, but we're this is the max extension that you get. From there, we ate up all that extension. So we ended up opening this location about 8 months later than we had anticipated. So even with that extension, we also lost all of that additional free rent time. So when we opened, we were already in a full rental payment period. Summer's our slow season. So when we originally had made the plan to open this location, we were supposed to open in October, which leads us into our busiest season. And we opened right at the end of March, leading into our slowest season. So not only were we way over budget, spent way more money than we had anticipated, I had to take out additional loans that I wasn't expecting to. And some of those loans were like from my parents because the bank had already maxed me out. And then one of them was like another more high interest loan compared to my original loan because it was like this additional loan. So you have to kind of scrape together whatever you can find at that rate to get more money. And so I was in way more debt than I had anticipated. So now I'm running 2 stores at my slowest season. I've kind of depleted my cushion of what I normally build up that little cushion over the winter season and then ride out the summer. And that was, all used up. So kind of having to deal with a lot of that. And that happening kind of led us into that time of when we were starting to get to that point of being like, well, what are we going to do with our first location? Are we going to keep it? And I think between the amount of work that I'm trying to dig myself out of this hole with this second store and then it not being into this busy season. So it was slower than we kind of had hoped our launch would be at this space. So step 1 was definitely deciding to close the first location, which really, it was a lot of back and forth. It would have ended that year and we made that call in November.
How did it feel? I mean, that was your first location, your first baby almost, right?
At that point, it was almost like walking away from a bad relationship. I'm putting all this effort in to save this relationship, basically, with this store. And I don't feel like I was getting out what I deserve to get back kind of thing. I'm putting in all this effort. I don't feel like there's value there. How much more can I kind of give to all of this space? In the end, I do feel like it felt good. It was hard getting to that space, which I feel like the breakup analogy is good in that sense that it is like, you're like, can I make it work? Can we figure this out? By the time August hit, it was like I couldn't scrape together anything else to get that. I had just opened this store. We still had Portage going at that time, and I had made a post being just kind of like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do this, because especially running 2 stores at that time, I had 2 rents to pay, I had 2 groups of staff to pay, that I had kind of put that call out being like, we need help if you want us to exist. And we did get a really good response from that, so that was really helpful. And then as we got back into the fall, our sales were starting to pick up. I think that's why that call to close the first store really happened a month before I had to sign that lease and make that decision, because it was kind of like money was coming in again. Maybe we could make this work. Let's just ride it out. But I think at that point it was like, no, I made that call that summer being like, I can't do this. And now that we are kind of okay, I need to just stick with my original plan. So that's kind of where we start to see our flow come back. We start to see that cushion that we can make in the winter to survive through the next summer. We need that whole calendar year to sort of balance where our money is. It's the light at the end of the tunnel for sure. There's definitely times where I'm like, this is how much money I walked away from this month. But when I don't have that debt payment to pay, that's actually going to be a pretty good month. I have to remind myself that. And so one of the bigger loans that I had taken off was a 2-year loan that I have now paid off. It's done. So that freed up some money.
Like a loan burning party?
No, I should have. Once they're all done, I feel like I might. And then the equipment I have at this location was on a 5-year, so I have 3 years left of that. I have another loan that was a 5-year, so I have 3 years left of that. So I'm 3 more years of being okay, I'll be pretty good in 3 years. So I remind myself that okay, if I actually look how much money I have, those payments are being made, so it feels good that I'm not having to take additional debt on and getting kind of through it, and then knowing that I'm almost there.
Coming up after the break, we find out what the future holds for Scout Coffee and Community. Welcome back to Yes, We Are Open. With the difficult decision to close her original location now behind her, Katrina Tessier looks forward to sunnier days once her debts are paid off. It seems she's on the right track to make that happen, but then what? Has this past experience made her reluctant to try expansion again? What does the future of Scout Coffee and Community look like? Stay tuned to find out.
What's the future outlook for Scout Coffee?
It's hard to even get that outlook because I feel like I'm just starting to kind of come out of the fog. It's funny, even after we closed our first location, people are like, are you going to open another location? Like another new location? I was like, oh God, no. Like, no, there's no way. I'm recovering from that right now, please. But definitely it's something that's asked often, like, will you open another store? I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see kind of once I am fully recovered from that debt where I am in a space to be able to see what our real profits are, right? At this point, it's still like a lot of that profit is being eaten up by debt. Also, like what the world is looking like. I don't think it's a good time to open a second store right now. So maybe in 3 years, it would be a better time to open a new space. We might be at a point where the economy is in recovery. So I do a lot of other parent support stuff as well, beside the coffee shop, which has been something that's been really nice to kind of run alongside the brand, right? So I'm also a birth doula. Okay. So I support birth, I support new parents. So that's where a lot of the baby wearing stuff ties into too. So somehow I feel like I would stick into that support system, support network for families. That's definitely like where the passion is. It's not coffee. Like I'm not like, I love a fancy espresso that has to be like this. It's more like I love having parents be happy and their kids be happy, which is why I wouldn't want the store to just go away, because I see like new parents need spaces to meet and need to make friends and get out of the house, and especially stay-at-home parents. I find during the week it's hard to have places to find places to go. And when we had our daughter, my husband was the stay-at-home parent, so I went back to work working in radio at 9 months, and then my husband just worked a couple nights a week and then otherwise stayed home with our daughter. So I really saw that trying to find things to do during the day was something that we really found crucial and really inspired, to make the store.
Scout is probably, 9 or 10 now?
She's 10, yeah.
So do you see signs in her, like entrepreneurial signs that she might, follow in mom's footsteps?
I don't think she would take over the coffee shop. As of right now, she wants to be a video game coder, which I'm happy to, she's going to make way more money doing that than running the coffee shop. So I'm happy to push her in that direction. But she does say this is going to be her first job. So when she's a teenager, I would expect her to be behind the counter at some point. But yeah, and that's one thing too. I'm like, maybe, we signed a 10-year lease at this location. So we have 8 years left here. So she'll be 18 when that is done. So I'm almost like, maybe I would just want to sell the business in 8 years and have some new parent come take over the space who has, she was 3 when we opened the store. Like if we could find someone maybe that would want to take over, that's in that same position where I feel like even putting together events and stuff, I'm like, what are the kids like these days? Like what shows are popular? Who's Miss Rachel? Like all of that stuff. And even now, it's more like I'm taking that information from our clientele. Like I'm not in it the same way. I have a tween now. I'll have a teenager soon. By the time that lease is up, it might just make sense to kind of pass the torch and keep the business going to some level. I do feel that it is useful for the community to have a space like this, and it would probably be really sad to not. So it would be nice to have some sort of version of someone else could maybe take over at that point.
Would you say Scout is proud of what you've accomplished?
I do think she is proud of the space and happy that it's like her space in her mind, but she still loves it here. Like, especially if there's other little kids, like she loves little kids too. So she'll love to come and play and I still enjoys the space. And I think kids that age too, they try not to play, they don't want to play anymore. I'll try and show that, but then once they get in there and start cooking stuff on the little barbecue and they were like, oh yeah, I'm still a kid. It's still there.
How do you feel?
Yeah, it feels good. Sometimes you have to sort of get out of that cloud of that head down, working, looking at the budget and stuff like that. And I find especially when we have birthday parties or we host events, sometimes we have Elsa come and you have all these little tiny kids dressed like Elsa. And those are the moments. Those are this is why we do it. When all of the little kids are singing Frozen off key. That's the moment that you're like, yes, this is why I'm here. And I think that was one thing we kind of lost during the pandemic, which lost sort of that purpose. And so having that back and having families and having those gatherings, that's the cherry on top. That's why we're here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right, ladies, is Scout Coffee and Community open?
Yes, we are open.
Perfect.
That's the story of Scout Coffee and Community. You never know when or where inspiration for a business idea will hit. Often it has a lot to do with what's going on in your life at the time. You'll see a problem or a need, come up with a solution, and you'll decide that you're the person to provide a solution for that problem or fill that need. In Katrina's case, she was looking for something social she could do with her young daughter, and that led to her idea for this niche café. But the idea is just the first step. You then still need to decide that you're the person that can make it happen. That's the difference between someone with good ideas and an entrepreneur. Clearly, Katrina is an entrepreneur, and Scout Coffee and Community is in good hands. First came Scout, then came Scout Coffee and Community. It's almost like a nursery rhyme, if only I could rhyme. Yes, We Were Open is a Moneris podcast production. I'd like to thank Katrina for taking the time to share her story. You can learn more about Scout Coffee and Community at scoutwinnipeg.com. Follow them on Facebook at scout.winnipeg or on Instagram they're at scout.coffeecommunity. Please support this podcast by telling a friend or rate us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a Canadian small business owner or know of one with an interesting story of perseverance to tell, I'd love to help tell it. You can contact me at podcast@moneris.com. Tune in next week for another story of small business struggle and survival on the Yes, We Were Open podcast. I'm Al Grego. Thank you for listening.